The Chargers find depth on defense. Depth on the offensive line? Not so much. Kupp will return to practice for the Rams, and a former UCLA football star wants to clean your toilet. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. So it is August 21st, 2023. We are all starting to dry off, and some of us are breaking out the shovels across Southern California after Tropical Storm Hillary. Let's take a moment, send up prayers, thoughts, good wishes for those of us who actually do have to go to Home Depot and start to rebuild. There are people out there who actually did get legit damage. Send them your thoughts and prayers. But while sending your thoughts and prayers, if you want to break the mood, there's always LA Sports. And if you like being in the know about LA Sports, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know we're dropping new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And comment. There's always good stuff to talk about when it's LA. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a look at the scoreboard in NFL preseason yesterday. New Orleans 22, Chargers 17. Easton Stick looked like a backup quarterback, which is okay because he is a backup quarterback, right? He was uneven at best, 233 pass yards without a touchdown, but 2 interceptions. We're going to talk a lot more about the Chargers in just a moment. Meanwhile, today, there are no games scheduled for teams in LA today. But let's get back to the Chargers. Now, I want to take a half step back. To tell you what I think about the Chargers preseason, I have to tell you what I think about the Rams. It'll make sense in a moment. The reason that I've been so hard on the Rams instead of the Chargers during this preseason is because the Rams are an unknown. Last year, the year before that, et cetera, when the Rams were elite, were in the running for a Super Bowl, it didn't matter that Sean McVay wouldn't play his starters. It didn't matter that Blake Bortles was under center. We knew who the starting quarterback of the Rams was. It wasn't going to be Bortles. The Rams were basically saying, you know what? We know what we have. Anything else we can get out of the preseason is a bonus. The Rams don't have that now. That's why I'm being more of a harsh critic about what's going on. But if you look at the Chargers may not be elite. Maybe not. Maybe they're not a real threat to win the Super Bowl. They could. Maybe. We know they're probably making the playoffs. So because of that, when Brandon Staley decides to rest all of his starters, like a Sean McVay would, I don't have much of a problem with that. When you don't see Justin Herbert play, I don't have much of a problem with that either, right? It's the same scenario, pretty much. But we can still get information from what we've seen yesterday during the Chargers preseason game. The Bolts losing does not mean much. But it is a red flag for the reserve offensive linemen. We know their starting offensive line is really strong, both in pass protection and in the run game. But what happens if a couple of them get injured? That depth is a problem because the backup offensive lineman, look, Stick had a bad game. Couldn't part of that reason be because he didn't get enough time in the pocket? He was scrambling around quite a bit yesterday. What about the Bolts running game yesterday? The running game tore apart the Rams defense last week. Last night, Chargers running backs combined for 57 total yards. All of that suggests that the reserve offensive linemen didn't help much at all. Now, third string quarterback Max Duggan not playing, by the way, that's not a good sign either. Not. So there are a couple of red flags in terms of reserves for the Chargers. Now, if you're looking for bright spots, there are absolutely ones to be had. A couple of them really bright. For example, I would suggest that second-year safety JT Woods is really taking a step up this year. He was a third-round draft pick last year, and he faltered because a lot of people thought he was afraid to tackle. He looked really bad trying to do that. Last night, though, I saw him chasing people down. I saw him putting people in the turf. He broke up a couple of passes. It was a strong game for him. And rookie linebacker Dayon Henley had a terrific game. He had the green sticker on his helmet. That means that he was the guy calling the defensive plays. He was the one in communication with the Chargers coaching staff. He's a rookie, and he knew what he was supposed to do in terms of calling plays. Not only that, he led the Bolts with 9 tackles. He had a quarterback sack. So I'm not going to sit there and tell you that last night was a disaster for the Bolts, because it clearly wasn't. I'm saying that much like you would expect in a preseason game, there were some dramatic pluses and a couple of things to be concerned about. Tell me what you think. There is finally good news to be had in Rams camp, by the way. Cooper Kupp is coming back to practice this week, as is defensive back Darian Kendrick, both scheduled to return this week. Now, what Kupp means for the Rams goes without saying. He may be the most important person on the team, frankly. And even more important than Aaron Donald, who is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. Because if you think about it, Aaron Donald can only contribute so much to the Rams defense. The Rams basically kept all of their offensive skill with the idea of we got to put up as many points as we can while we rebuild the defense on the fly. Cooper Kupp is the most important part of that machine. He's the guy that Matthew Stafford can find at any time to try to move the sticks, to try to keep the offense on the field. So that matters that Kupp is back. And as for Kendrick, LA needs to have as many quality cornerbacks as they can get their hands on because they don't have a pass rush right now. Straight and simple. Now, at the end of last weekend, we were talking about one thing the Rams could rely on. The one thing was offensive skill. Kupp, Stafford, the running backs, the other receivers. We now have a little bit more data after that second game. What can we speculate? If there is a plus to this remodel, and I mentioned it yesterday, it's because that players have to fight for their jobs with the Rams. Yesterday, we were talking about defense. What I did not mention was the offensive line. Brian Allen was the surefire starting center last year, but he's been injury prone, and it hasn't been made official. But looking at Saturday's game again, Coleman Shelton filled in more than just okay. He was pretty solid. Consider that the Rams' entire offensive line yesterday allowed only 3 pressures against its quarterback Saturday. There's no reason that the Rams should feel obligated to start Allen or keep a spot for him. For that matter, you could almost say the same about former left tackle Joe Noteboom. He lost his left tackle gig. And then you look across the offensive line for the Rams. Where is Joe Noteboom fit? He's not playing left tackle. He's not going to play left guard because LA is sold on rookie Steve Avila. We already talked about center. The only opening left is at right guard, but Tremaine Ankrum looked extremely stout in pass protection. And the Rams are going to be passing a lot this season. So it is possible that 2 supposedly solid starting offensive linemen from the Rams last year might be out of a job. Might be. I'm going to spend a lot of time scratching my head over what I'm about to tell you. I mean, I'm going to wind up scratching my head so much that I may as well just say goodbye to the final few follicles of hair I have on the top of my head. But former UCLA linebacker Miles Jack informed the Philadelphia Eagles that he is retiring from football so he could pursue his real dream of becoming a plumber or an electrician. A plumber. The man has an education from UCLA and he wants to put it to use by rooting out your clogged toilet. Instead of putting a quarterback on his ass, he would rather have his ass hanging out of the back of his dungarees. What are we? Quote, I've been blessed to make a lot of money, so I could just retire and sit at the house, but I'm too bored. My mind is too much, so I just want to be innovative. I don't know, if a zombie apocalypse happens, I want to be able to build something or fix something, unquote. I didn't realize UCLA had a major in zombie apocalypses, but let's put that aside to the moment. Have any of you ever needed a plumber? I had always assumed that there was nothing innovative about that, right? What's innovative in terms of plumbing? But I didn't realize you could get a master's in clogged feces at UCLA. This is screwing with my head. big time. You tell your kid to get an education. Hey, get an education. It'll set you up for life. And all he learned is the latest in plunger technology? The newest chemicals in your bottle of liquid plumber? Miles Jack is a different cat, dude. Speaking of UCLA, should we beware the Chanticleers? Right? The Athletic listed its rankings of every college football team. Every last one down to 133. The rankings say UCLA is number 32, but the Bruins season opening opponent, Coastal Carolina, isn't that far behind. They're number 43. Now, we're going to have some more in-depth analysis of Coastal Carolina in the coming days, but the first thing that you should know, aside from looking up what Chanticleer means, is that quarterback Grayson McCall is attempting to become a 4-time Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year. So they have at least one threat. I don't like playing Mr. Sensitive, but did you notice how many people posted dumb jokes about Tropical Storm Hillary? Oh my God, what a disaster. And then they post a photo of a lawn chair being knocked over. Womp womp, right? I've lived in Florida. I had to go through a couple of hurricanes. They're kind of like earthquakes in the sense that one building is totally untouched, but then the next one right next to it is completely jacked up. And I know, like I said, I know some people who apparently got hit pretty hard. But did you see the photos of Dodger Stadium? Because the place is in a ravine. So all that water stayed in the ravine and just started to rise. Dodger Stadium looked like it was floating, for Pete's sakes. That's suboptimal. Now, the Dodgers themselves, they're on the road this week, so they have a little time to figure something out. But just letting you know, that was not a good look for Dodger Stadium yesterday. Considering the hot streak that he's been on, there are Dodger fans who are starting to hype James Outman for Rookie of the Year. That's a little bit over the top, but former Major League Baseball general manager Jim Bowden ranked Outman as the third best rookie position player in the National League. He calls Outman, quote, the answer in center field, a key cog for the Dodgers, unquote. But Outman still needs to get better in terms of recognizing his strike zone. And I think that's fair. That's a fair assessment. Bobby Miller is listed as Bowden's fourth favorite rookie pitcher in the NL. Miller has a triple-digit fastball and, quote, goes right at hitters and isn't afraid of anyone. There is no doubt he belongs, unquote. I mentioned the Athletics preseason college football poll a couple of minutes ago. We have now achieved maximum groupthink in college football because the Athletic ranks USC as number 6. Just like the AP, just like the USA Today coaches poll, just like the ESPN Power Rankings. So a solid 6. Kings general manager Rob Blake placed a few big wagers in the offseason. We all know that. But the Athletic also opined that one of the moves was one of the 5 biggest risks of the entire NHL offseason. And no, it wasn't who the Kings acquired. It was because the Kings traded defenseman Sean Durzi, one of the 5 biggest risks taken. The risk, they say, is twofold. One, what if Grant Clark struggles or gets injured? You don't have Durzi to take his place. The other is Durzi was traded to the Phoenix Coyotes, and the Coyotes straight up stink, which makes Sean Durzi a trade chip when the deadline comes up about 2/3 of the way through the season. What if the Coyotes flip Durzi to somebody the Kings play in the playoffs? Say Edmonton or Colorado. Something to consider in the weeks ahead or months ahead. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Talk to me about what you saw if you watched the Chargers game last night. Tell me if now that your toilet is having a problem, if you need somebody to give you the hookup to former UCLA linebackers. And if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Key on Corte El Queso production. Take care.